Hi, Corey. How are you doing today?
Excellent. How about you, Tara?
Good, good. I'm really glad we have this opportunity to talk. It was interesting in our conversation how we discovered a lot of similarities in what we do, similar work, but a little bit different audiences. So I'm excited to talk about that today.
Yeah, excellent.
So let's have a conversation, particularly about time management and entrepreneurship. So, why do you think that entrepreneurs need to manage their time more effectively?
Yeah, I think it's been very important lately, especially because there's so many people starting side gigs, and it's not sensationalized, but it's on all over the internet that hey, you can start a side gig, you can start your own business, and people don't realize sometimes the amount of tasks that need to be done when you have your own business, and especially if you're starting it off by yourself. It seems pretty simple, but there are many different elements that need to be considered.
Yeah, absolutely. And they might be an expert in that one thing, that they're their thing, but to have the resources for all the other things and to manage all the tasks, especially when you're first starting out, that can definitely be a challenge. I know I come across that all the time when people are talking about um, quitting their day job and just getting started into
Mhm.
full-time freelancing or full-time gig work. How do I make that transition and how do I buy out the time? And I know for me, it's really important to schedule everything, to get everything on my calendar. So that's one thing that I always encourage folks to do. I
Mhm.
want to ask you though, when you encounter entrepreneurs, sometimes they've kind of hit a plateau. So what do you do then when things have been going along good and then all of a sudden they run into a roadblock?
Yeah, one of the things I would suggest even maybe before they get started, I think taking action is one of the most important things you can do. However, potentially a pre-step and also throughout the process is to ask the questions of, what are your goals? Why are you here? Why do you want to achieve these goals? What are they specifically? And get as specific as you can. Sometimes they're vague, but if you're not asking that question, sometimes you end up running around like a chicken with your head cut off because you're going to the next thing, taking care of the next fire or this and that. But if you hit a plateau, I think you need to kind of take a step back, slow down, take a breath, and start maybe a strategy session. And that could be 5 minutes. That could be an hour. That could be once a week. That could be once a month. But you need to take a step back outside of you working in the business to work on your business.
Yes, key differentiation there in the business versus on the business. And I see that a lot of times when people get started. Sometimes they're working their other job and they're getting their gigs going. Sometimes they're working 80 hours a week because they're trying to do all the things, but they're in their business, in their business, in their business.
Yes.
Good reminder. I was also thinking too, Corey, one thing that I really like as far as a resource for setting those priorities, there's a really good book. We'll make sure to link it in here too. Free to Focus by Michael Hyatt. I personally really like that one because there's a lot of time management techniques in there, but it's
Mm-hmm.
also about that prioritizing piece. What's really most important? Where is your focus? It's a good reset anytime you find yourself at that fork in the road where do I go next? What do I want to do next? That's a good book to pick up and just get that focus back on track
Mm-hmm.
again.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, there's some other books. I'm not familiar with that one, but there's a number of these different types of books out there that will help you with the time management. And I've seen other ones, and some that will help you with some of that productivity is Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy. That's one where he talks about, I believe, prioritizing along with figuring out, what's the 80/20, what's the 20% of things you're going to do that'll get you 80% of the results. And then the 80% of things that you do on a regular basis that only get 20% of the results. And you kind of want to steer clear of that 80% because you're getting such a low return on that. But there are different strategies to deal with that also.
Oh yeah, I call that my back burner items. That's the stuff that
Mhm.
could, should, maybe get done, but it just isn't top priority. So one thing that I like to do is I take a post-it note. A lot of times I'll put like my top three things for the day on that post-it note and put it right front and center where I see it all the time. Where anytime I feel myself drifting or getting distracted, going down a tangent, I go, nope, I got to get back to this list, focus back on that post-it note and get those things done before I let myself do any of those other things. So that's something I do. Do you have any tips?
Yeah, I used to do the same thing, pretty much write out a list every single day of the top, 10 things or how many there are, and then try to compare each one. Okay, the first thing and the second thing, which one's more important? Then I rewrite them, or in my case, do it online, like in a Google Sheet or something. and then take the second and third thing. Which one's more important in here? And then you can kind of reprioritize as you go down, and you realize, like you said, you'll have the top 2 or 3 things that you should accomplish that day. And I know in the past, when starting off with this, and sometimes even in the middle, you get so busy that I have not accomplished those top 3 things. And like, oh my gosh, what's going on? But it's a good reminder that distractions happen, and we get so in the moment that if we don't take those steps back to really review what's going on. And I've seen people recommend, once an hour, check your status, check your priorities, and see, are you still on track for what you're trying to accomplish today?
Yeah, that's a good reminder, Corey. That made me think. I don't have it at the moment, but I had an exercise tracker that would remind me to stand up every hour. So maybe that would be a good mental cue to tie that to something. Because for me too, if I tie it to something else I'm already doing, it's easier to implement a new habit or a new routine. So that would be a good reminder. And that also made me think about our health is important too. We need to be well-rounded entrepreneurs. We need to take care of all those other things. We need to eat right and sleep right and be healthy, all those other things too. So thoughts on that? How can an entrepreneur be balanced in all aspects of their life?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I know, especially lately, people talking about mental health has been a huge thing because that's just been out in the forefront. But like you said, it's all different areas of your life. So one thing I like to start with is family. Are you taking care of your family unit? Because, why are we doing what we're doing anyway? Just to make a bunch of money and have a bunch of money at the end of our life? Sounds good, but, money is just a means of exchange. So figuring out, do I have family commitments? Do I need to spend a certain amount of time or investment there? Then when you start thinking about your business, once again, what types of goals do I have? How many hours a day do I want to work? And if you're getting started in your own business, you probably, if it's only you probably have to do a lot of investment in regards to time, energy, and maybe money resources to do it yourself until you can afford to either hire or subcontract out some of the other things that you're doing. And then also too, like you said, the whole piece of health and fitness. You gotta move. That's an important piece, but you also have to eat nutritiously, because I tried to get away with that, especially when my kids were young. I'm like, oh, I'm too busy to move and exercise and to eat healthy. I just need to eat all this fast food and snacks because I have a sweet tooth. But then come to find out years later, then all of a sudden, as I start getting older, this stuff starts creeping up and you start having issues like, what's going on here? And then the doctor tells you, ooh, you can have a life event. So you want to be smart with what you're doing. So in essence, if you're not balanced and you just exclude certain things and you're not looking at the whole picture, the whole system, then you're gonna miss out on that one piece. And we're only as strong as your weakest link. So if that's a holistic approach, you gotta look at all the different areas. And I also include in there, some spiritual or fun. Like, there's several F's when it comes to your life. It could be your finances, you might be thinking of your family, your fitness, your fun, your future. And there could be a number of other different things, but just thinking about those different areas. And when you put those in, all of a sudden that also can create more motivation, more energy for the things that you choose and want to do, rather than just being drained constantly on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, good point. Good point. And a lot of the entrepreneurs I know started out because of that family piece. They want more time with their family.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to reevaluate that periodically and say, am I still doing that, or have I let work get out of control that way? And there's I read, maybe it was in that Free to Focus book. There's a really good illustration about if you're squeezing an orange, you can only squeeze it, only get so much juice out of it. And there's a point of diminishing returns. And it's been shown, studies have shown that if you were, I think it's over 50 hours a week, if I remember was the number, but there's a certain point where if you work too much, that you lose the productivity. You're not getting any more juice out of that orange. There just isn't any more left to give. And again, the family piece too. One thing that I like to recommend too for people to find balance for all of those areas, I like the F's that you mentioned, is to find ways to do the things you have to do with the people who are important to you. So if you want to fit more fitness in your life, so we went kayaking with friends last weekend. Can you do it with people? Can you incorporate a physical activity with the people who are important to you? And I'm not saying, I've spent plenty of time in the gym over the years, but there's other ways to do that. I took my son and one of his friends, and we even kicked a soccer ball around the soccer field for a while. That's a great workout and it's great time with important people. So there's ways that we can be creative in our time management by thinking about how can I get done the things I need to do, and exercise is a need with people who are important to me. So that's a great way to do it. Another thing I
Yeah.
want to talk about time management though is a big one a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with is delegating. Well, let's talk about
Mm,
that, Cory. Do
yeah.
you have any suggestions for us on how we can get better at delegating?
Yeah, the one thing is, I think a couple things. It takes a mindset to delegate because many entrepreneurs, most of them are headstrong and think, I'm the only one who can do it perfect. There's nobody else who can do this. And of course, we know that's not true. But if you have and change that mindset, which I've had to do, to, hey, I can do things that are in my zone of genius. What do I enjoy doing? What's impactful that maybe only I have that capability or flair or energy to do. And you kind of have to weigh that with impact because there's a lot of things we like to do, but they may not be very impactful. But when you're delegating, I've heard of this one tip called the 3 Ds. Either you do it now yourself, you can do it later, or you can delegate it. And when I learned about that a few years back, I'm like, oh my gosh, that sounds so awesome because I'm so overwhelmed. I keep adding tasks to my list, and I'm like, I'm never getting to the bottom 3/4 of it, let alone just the top quarter. So if people do that and have the mindset, wow, somebody else can take on, as we talked about earlier, the 80-20 rule or Pareto's principle, that other people can take on the 80% of things, then what can we start to shift to other people? And we can manage them along the way, make sure the expectations are there, but we got to have that open mindset, an abundance mindset that, hey, I can grow and expand both myself, my business, and I can free up some time if I'm willing to delegate.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's helpful for me is to remember that the work that we do, it's learned skills. They're not things that we were born with, we were taught. So we therefore can teach someone else. And yeah, initially it might be harder, might take longer to teach someone else how to do something than to just do it ourselves. But the long-term payoff is going to be worth it. It's going to be worth it. And I also like to remind folks that the things we don't like to do, if we're not passionate about it, we're not good at it, we hate doing it, but it still has to be done. There's someone out there who enjoys it. There are people who like to do the things we don't like to do. There are people who like accounting. There are people who like cleaning. Those are not on the top of my list. Why not delegate some of those items to free ourselves up? I like how you use the word genius. Why not free ourselves up to do the things that only we really can do, because there are things that are only us that we have to do. So great reminders on
Yeah,
delegation. Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
sure.
I want to talk about efficiency today too. Efficiency definitely fits with time management. Efficiency tips. Tell me what you do to help people be more efficient.
Yeah, one of the things I suggest, and I do this for myself, is time blocking. So putting certain 1 hour on the calendar to do this, take care of this, that first priority, putting 30 minutes on the calendar to take care of the second priority or whatever it is, but putting time limits on it is one tip, because I've gotten stuck in tasks, especially with all of these new tools and um, artificial intelligence, everything else out there. You just want to play a little bit, and it's just like if you're watching YouTube or Netflix or whatever, or TikTok, and you're like, I've only been on here for 5 or 10 minutes, and come to find out it's been 2.5 hours. You get sucked into that stuff. But if you stay calendar driven and you put those time slots in, then at least you're going to address those top 1 or 2 or 3 priority things for that day and get your best energy, the most amount of time that you can with that. Otherwise, if we start with the low priority tasks, then you're going to suck away all your time, all your energy. Then it's too late. You got to move on to the next thing or go home, or you sacrifice some of those important things that are also on the calendar.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I
Yeah.
like to front load my calendar too. I like to be the first one up in the morning, and I like to eat that frog first. I like to do the hard stuff right away. And then I also feel like that helps me to build some momentum. I've
Mhm.
done something, I've accomplished something, and it feels so good to accomplish something before anyone else is up. Like I don't know, there's something about that just feels good. And I keep my alarm keeps creeping up a little earlier and a little, or pretty soon I'm gonna be that crazy person who's up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I don't know. But it does. It helps for me to get things. And same thing, you talked about the energy, Cory, too. I notice that when we're doing the items that should be lower on our list,
Mhm.
that is more energy draining than the good stuff and the genius work, because that actually fuels us. That actually makes us feel better when we accomplish those things. So of course that's going to help with our efficiency, our productivity, so that we're making the best use of our time while we're in that time.
Yes, and you brought up a couple points that kind of reminded me of some other things that when you, what I call, when you take care of those, or eating the frog first thing, and it's the toughest thing, like Brian Tracy says in his book, that you end up getting all this, what I call mental momentum. And all of a sudden, if that was the toughest thing you had to accomplish and you accomplished it early in the day, that's going to fuel all the other stuff that you're doing. And then another suggestion would be to group tasks, so tasks that are similar, which keeps your efficiency up. Because if you're always task switching or multitasking, people out there say, oh, you can multitask. And then there's other studies that say you can't multitask. And I find this funny too, because one of my hobbies is I became a private pilot years ago. And that's one of the things they train you in, is how to multitask and look outside the airplane, look at all the gauges, make sure nobody's going to run into you, or you're not going to run into a mountain. And they make you do all this multitasking, and you're not really doing that. You're just paying attention to one thing at a time, but you're not going to increase that efficiency or proficiency when you're doing that. So if you can stick to one task or one type of thing, just like if we're running errands, oh, I've got to run an errand, well, I shouldn't go to the bank, come back, or go to the store, come back. You should kind of map them out, and what kind of pattern is going to be efficient. You're in that mode, and then you've saved on gas if you have to travel, and you've saved on a lot of time and efficiencies. That's going to help mental momentum, as I call it. And like you said, it fuels you instead of draining you.
Absolutely. And I think that's really relatable when you talk about running errands, because we can all relate to that, thinking about what is going to be the best for, traffic at this time of the day, what's going to be the best order for how busy stores are. I'll even sometimes look on Google and see are they busy today to try to be efficient. So why not do the same thing with the rest of our tasks? Thanks for that. So, okay, so let's talk about that. How can we align these daily things with our long-term goals?
Going back to some of those questions, those impact questions, what are my goals for the year or 5 years, my long-term vision, and then why do I want those things? So reminding yourself on a regular basis is going to be so important. And then that's going to fuel what happens on a weekly or daily basis. Because if you just go by all the fires and all the urgent things that come in every day, once again, you're just going to be busy, busy, busy. You bring your head up at the end of the month, and you're like, I didn't work on any of my high priority tasks. If I did, I gave it the least amount of energy and the least amount of time. So revisiting that purpose, your mission, what are you trying to accomplish? And I forget the example, but I believe I heard a story about an Olympic team in boating. And one of the questions they came down with, one of the main questions they came down with is, with our boating and our competition, with anything we do, will this make the boat go faster? And if it doesn't make the boat go faster, we need to let it go. We need to only do what makes the boat go faster. And by being efficient and iterating and really honing in on that, asking that question constantly, that's going to help anybody. And that's going to help us, especially on a daily basis, not just to run in and check email. And that might be another tip I would have, not just to run in and check email first. Figure out what you want to accomplish that day or that hour, or whatever it is, and then figure out what the next tasks are that are important.
Good one. That's an interesting thing. I am not a person who has email popping up all day, because it takes me a really long time when I get distracted to refocus. And that's something that's been recommended to me too. Set times that you're going to check your email. Check it. I try to stick to like 3 times a day. I try not to check it more than that, because otherwise it's easy. It's easy to get overwhelmed and go down wormholes and just get lost and waste a lot of time. Yeah, thank you. So any other question or tips for us on how we can be more effective with time, leveraging our time better?
Yeah, a couple of things that come to mind are just like you said with email. One thing I know that's distracted me is even just having the window up. And I still tell myself, ooh, a new email popped in, which took my attention. I look at it, I'm like, ooh, that's not important. And even though I want to delete it, I'm like, sometimes, no, I can't delete it. Don't even put energy toward it. But the fact that the window's up is a distraction. So if you can, like I try to do when I get home, my phone is off and on the counter. I know most people don't do that, but I put it off, turn it upside down, which is not going to notify me. And 99% of the time anyway, I have my notifications turned off unless I know I'm expecting something from family or some other important communication. But pretty much 99.99% of all communications have never been urgent, or in that moment important that I need to take care of things. So having some of those technology notifications turned off when you don't need them, because maybe we don't need them all the time at work. And so therefore we could turn them off and maybe put our phone in our drawer or in our desk or away from us. And then once an hour, if you need to, if you feel the need, go back and check it. But this is going to allow you to, as in one book called Deep Work by Cal Newport, I believe, where he talks about getting deep in whatever you're doing, create more time and allow for space for you to get deeper in something. Because the more deep you get, the more nuances you can see, the more specified, the more clarity you can get in a lot of things you're doing, and the way better efficiency and quality of work that you can do. But a lot of us are, once again, multitasking because we have all these electronic notifications popping up everywhere. So we're diverting our attention, and we got to get our attention back up 100% to that next thing. And then we have to take it down and get it back up to the next thing. And that studies have shown that we are way more inefficient when we're switching all the time. So we can get a little bit of deep work. And this includes when you're taking a break, when you're going on vacation, have some time that you're not even on your phone, not even doing work. And one of the other business coaches, I don't know if you're familiar with or not, but Dan Sullivan, a strategic coach, he's written several books, coaches entrepreneurs, but basically he's talked about having 3 different types of days. One is called a focus day, where you're just focused on work, focused on deep work. Number 2 is a buffer day, which is a planning type strategy session. And another is a free day. So the free days are just that. You don't do any work. You don't not look any or answer any emails or calls for work. So, and he recommends, I think minimum, he's talking about 3 free days a week. Starts off with that. And for him, his main goal is to set, before he goes into the year, he actually schedules 150 free days a year, whatever that looks like. I haven't done the math, but 150 free days first, because that's most important to him. Because if he doesn't have that, everything else, the meaning drops down quite a bit. But then after those free days, then he sets up the number of focus days, which, if you did a 5-day week or a 7-day week, you might only have 4 focus days, 3 or 4 that you're really hard working on something, and you might have 1 buffer or planning day. So get those free days in. And the cool part I've noticed, I'm like, why all those free days? Does that even work? Because I've been in the system, the corporate world for a long time. I'm like, nobody ever teaches that. But when you do that, it's just like when anybody sets up a vacation and plans for it, you become so focused and efficient on getting almost everything done up until that point. You've never been as efficient in getting most everything you need to get done to go on that vacation, and at least have a few days of free days or a week or whatever. Then when you do that, so if you do that in your business, you're going to find some huge productivity gains in most cases, because you're going to work hard to get that done. And I think there have also been studies where most, I don't remember how long ago it was, probably dozens of years ago, but just the amount of hours a day that people work actually. And if they normally were at work for an 8-hour day, people might only have worked 4 to 5 hours or something. You're like, oh my gosh, what's up with that? And a lot of corporations are finding that out now, which is with the remote work, they're changing how they compensate people. And many of them, it's okay, as long as you get this task done, we'll pay you for this task. You don't have to be here 8 hours. If you get it done in 5 or 7 hours, that's fine. The time is on you. So it's really interesting when you schedule these different types of days, focus, free days, or buffer days, to be strategic.
Nice. Good suggestions. Thank you. Appreciate that. And for some folks that might sound really overwhelming. So my encouragement would be, especially if you're just starting out or this is a new thought to you, is to start small. Just like any goal, it's always good to start small. Start with the stuff like we talked about. Schedule your workouts, schedule your family time, and actually put that on your calendar. And then that time is reserved. So you don't take that time or don't fill that time. Because I know for me, those are like the first things that I give up when an opportunity comes around. But I believe we live in a world of abundance. There will always be more opportunities. There won't always be more of that family time or that free time. And that's when our best moments in our life happen in that downtime. And it's so crucial. So if it's overwhelming to take a day, I'd encourage people just, take an hour, schedule an hour for lunch with a girlfriend, schedule an hour for your workout, schedule an hour for an uninterrupted dinner with your family. Start with those things and build up to that. And I like to, right away at the start of each year, I like to schedule volunteer time. That's something that's really important to me. So I make sure to get that on my calendar and fill that out. And it also protects me a little bit and makes it easier to say no when people want my time for other causes. That's really hard for me when a nonprofit comes to me and they pull on those heartstrings and they want you to do work for them. And I'd love to give to all of the causes that are important to me. But when I allocate it at the start of the year, then I can say exactly that. I've already allocated my volunteer time for the year and I don't have any more to give this year. And that makes it easier. And we can apply that principle to a lot of things. A lot of entrepreneurs struggle with saying no. If we have the time committed, blocked off for those important things, we can say, I'm already booked at that time. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's your workout. It doesn't matter what that time is for, but we can say, I'm already booked for that time. And the answer is no. Because I'm sure you see that too. Entrepreneurs, it's hard to say no.
And one thing I also just thought of as you were saying that is somebody talked about, you can also, you learn to say no because you schedule things and you just don't have the time or the bandwidth for it. But you can also say yes to those people, but it just may not be this week or this month. It may be 3 or 4 months. This is when I've got an opening. So you still can say yes, and it allows you to say a more affirmative yes, and you can commit to it better rather than this, ooh, yeah, I'm going to pull my hair out, which I can't do, but I'm going to pull my hair out trying to be stressed and doing everything for everybody. So yeah, learning to say no is definitely important.
That's a good trick too. So that makes me think of the improv trick. Yes, and that's a good way to not shut something down. So if you do want to potentially do something in the future, could you do this for me, Tara? Yes, and I can do that in 2024. It's the yes and can buy us time, buy us space, but not shut down the conversation because perhaps we do want to. Perhaps whatever it is, perhaps we do want to have that conversation or do want to get that client. I've used this example before where I do some website developing and someone says, hey, I'd like a glow in the dark website. Can you do that for me? Yes, and we can have that done by 2032. It might be even a long, but you don't want to shut down everything right away. And sometimes no will do that. Sometimes I think that's why a lot of us are hesitant to say no is because we're afraid it means no forever. So a yes and can just be a no for now or no in this circumstances and keep us talking.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Cory. Gosh, this has really been fun, really been insightful. And I'm sure our audiences are going to really enjoy our conversation. What other tidbits do you have for us before we call it a day?
The basic thing I would say is just define your why. Whatever you want to do, define it. Make sure it's out there ways. Don't define a goal as for today that you want to accomplish, because many times we think we can accomplish more in a day. And if you put out a long-term goal, you don't realize actually how much you can accomplish over that long-term goal as things start to compound, or you leverage your time, which is either your own resources, your money, human resources, whatever it may be. But definitely have those goals in place, and also to have the balance, be willing to take a step back and have that balance of those different areas of your life, both personal and business wise, is what I would suggest.
Nice. Thank you. I love that. A good reminder, get back up now and then, take a 10,000-foot view, take that long-term goal, and then break it down into small steps. They're basics, but we forget to do these things. So thank you for that. Great. Well, thanks, Cory. Tell our listeners, our viewers, where they can find you if they want more information from you.
Yeah, our phone number is 734-995-5290. And our website is www.bdb, as you see up on the screen, like boy, dog, boy, marketingdesign.com.
Thanks, Cory. And we'll have links to the books we talked about below and links to our websites as well. Thanks for your time and your attention. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tara.